This is the Puck Junk Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. I'm Sal Berry, and with me is Clemente Lisi. And today we're going to give an update on the 2026 Winter Olympic men's and women's ice hockey tournaments. We're also going to talk about some Olympic hockey cards that came out recently. We're also going to talk about the PSA grading card hikes that were announced recently. So that's what's on the agenda for today. So Clemente, it's been a while. How you been?
I've been great. I think this is actually my first Puck Junk podcast of 2026.
Is that so? Wow, that's
So Happy New Year.
Yeah, well, Happy New Year. You've been busy, and then Tim's been busy, so it's good that there's one of you could show up and do a show. That's good.
I think the newer listeners might think that Tim and I are the same person, and we just never in the same room at the same time. But
I know I got to dispel that myth. No, they are different people. I guarantee it.
We've been at the National, all of us together. People have seen us, so it's true.
Yeah, there's a few pictures of us hanging out at the National. We'll definitely have to talk about the National as we get closer to that because I haven't said this on the podcast yet, so I'll just say this now. I will be setting up at the National this year. I wasn't able to set up last year because the arrangement I had with another dealer that I was able to set up at his space, and then things changed, and so and not a bad thing. It was just more of just like they weren't going to set up, and I don't want to get into the details or the politics of it, but it wasn't like we hate you, Sal, go away. It wasn't like that sort of situation. It was kind of more like, Sal, we're sorry, but blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, I understand. I had a good run. So last year I was a customer. I was a fan, and I got to hang out with you and Tim. Had a blast. But then this year I was able to get a table for the 2026 show. So I will be first floor. I don't quite know my booth number. I know they said, it's going to be first floor against the wall. So I'm like, okay. As a first time, officially as my first time, as a first time vendor, like officially, I can't really ask for much other than just being included. So it's not like I've been there like 20 years or 40 years. And even the last couple of years don't really count because I was setting up under somebody else's booth space. But yeah, I'll be there as a vendor. So that'll be good.
Yeah, I think it's great. Congratulations. It'll be fun for you to have a booth, for us to hang out somewhere. But also, I was there last year at the National thing on the last day when you actually fill out the paperwork. So it's nice to full circle now. Here we are. That's good.
Yeah. I filled out the paperwork and then I proceeded to wait almost, 6 months to find out, will they or won't they? Do they love me or not?
Yeah, it was like you were looking for like an organ donor. It was like so much paperwork and then so much of like, is it going to happen? Is a lot of anxiety around it? A lot of, I think the original timeline was like 6 weeks, and that obviously didn't happen in 6 weeks. But good things happen to those who wait, and it happens. So it'll be fun, and it'll be Chicago again. We should tell people that it will be in Chicago again this summer. And we're all looking forward to it. It's, the clock is ticking at this point.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it'll be here before we know it, especially since I'm doing the Chicago Sports Spectacular next month, and then I'm going to be doing a local one-day show in April, which I normally don't do one-day shows anymore. And I'll post more details on that as I get closer, but that'll be in the city itself. So I'm kind of starting to, get back into like doing shows because I haven't done a show since I think last year. The only shows I did were March and November, the Sports Spectacular. So, I'm kind of doing more, going to do obviously the biggest show and then a one-day show because it's so close to my house. I'm just like, this is like almost a no-brainer. Do you go to like any like local one-day shows? I know you're always a regular now at the Fanatics Fests, and
No, it's funny. You read my mind. I was going to say that the last show I went to was the National. I haven't been to a show since then, and I always go to the White Plains show in January, but we got some snow that day, and I didn't go. And then as everyone knows, half the country's been slammed by cold weather and snow. So even like a 1 day show, we've had a few of them. I just haven't gone because it's like literally 3 degrees out, or 5 degrees, or 0 degrees. So I haven't gone to anything. There's a few coming up in late February and March around
Mhm.
here. 1 day shows. Like I feel like a lot of these church shows are showing up again. Like I remember as a kid, I
Yeah.
might go to one of those just because you just never know. Even though it's like 50 tables, you never know what you might run into. But hopefully, I get to go to a few more shows in the spring before the national. I mean, I will say this: the national does really scratch that itch, especially if you go there for the full 5. It's almost like an inoculation, like you're good for a while. But I'd love to go to a show. I feel like I'm due to go to a show just to even see what's happening in the hobby. It's the best way to really gauge trends. That's why when you set up at the spectacular, I always either like to go or like to ask you and Tim,
Mhm.
how was the show? Because that's a really big show. The other thing I noticed too is I know we kind of make fun of this or we laugh about it, but the Dallas Card Show is actually coming to New Jersey. The Dallas Card Show New Jersey is happening. So I may go to that at some point. So there's a lot of shows happening, obviously, as the weather gets nicer. But yeah, you really get a gauge for the hobby. I mean, I think being online or being on eBay alone doesn't really tell you the full story. You need to actually talk to dealers, see tables, see prices. It's the best part.
Yeah, the Dallas Card Show Chicago edition is coming back to Chicago this year. I might go check that out just to to buy stuff. But yeah, you're right about the national kind of being like an inoculation, right? Like you go, like I went to the national and then I was just like, no, I'm good. I don't need to buy anything for a while. It's like it's like when you eat a big feast and then you're just like you don't want to eat the next day, and then maybe like a 10 o'clock at night you might have a little snack, but you're just like, oh, I'm still full or whatever, whatever. You kind of just a little bit, and that's kind of like what it's like. But yeah, at the same time, like national, you're gonna find everything, stuff that you can afford, stuff that you can't afford. And like a 1 day show, like you said, you don't know what you'll find. So that's kind of like when you go with an open mind and you just like say, oh, maybe I'll find something I like. You're not going to be like, oh, this is going to be the place for me to finish my 63, 64 Parkhurst hockey set. That's not going to happen at a 1 day show, most likely. More likely to happen at the national, just because you have the bigger selection. But then again, who knows? You might find uh, like cheap wax for $5, $10 that you want to open, or you might find singles from like the newest sets, or somebody who just decides like, oh, I'm going to start selling cards or selling my collection, and they're like parting out their collection. So it might even just be stuff like I think sometimes like first time sellers don't necessarily start at the national. They just might start at a 1 day show. And then so that's sometimes a good way to get kind of like, I don't want to say first crack at somebody's collection, but if you were, I mean, I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Would you agree with that? That's
Yeah.
just
Yeah, I
right.
totally agree with that. I feel like a 1 day show is the kind of thing where, yeah, you can't go with a want list because the inventory is going to be much smaller. But they
Mhm.
could be someone who was just starting out as a dealer, or someone who bought a collection, and maybe they're a player collector, or maybe they have sets. And you're right, you never know what they might throw out on that table. And so you go with an open mind. I mean, usually the admission is like, I'm talking about shows where the admission is like $1, $5,
Right.
really small stuff. And if anything, there's always new stuff that you could always buy, and that's okay because people like to break things open, buy cases, and then throw all that stuff out there too. And that's okay because, yeah, I can go out on eBay or ComC, but I do buy it and then come home with it. So yeah, I'm curious about stuff like that. So I should go to more of those 1 day shows. I feel like there's a lot more of those in my area: New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. I guess a
Mhm.
lot of church basements are doing shows. Again, I think promoters are thinking, hey, you know what, this is like the 90s a little bit. Let's do shows. And it's always good because then you're gonna most likely meet people who are local to you, and that's okay too. I mean, the national is it's massive. It's international, actually, if you think about it. So, and that's fine. I love the national or the expo, but in a lot of ways, the expo feels local because it's a lot of Ontario dealers, even though it's all
Yeah.
Canada. So, but yeah, no, I agree. And so I want to be able to get to some of those shows too, because just to talk to people. I mean, and often when you see listings for them, it'll tell you how many tables are there. If it says 50 tables, 100 tables, that's a decent sized show for
Yeah.
for 1 day. So yeah, absolutely. That's the kind of thing that hopefully as spring starts to come across, the East Coast and the Midwest, and temperatures get a little nicer to go outside. It'll be good to do, and lots of new sets coming out too in March, April, that kind of thing. You have the new Topps baseball set that's out now. So there's a lot of. I was just talking to you before we started the show. I mean, there's just a lot of cards and a lot of shops and a lot of everywhere now. I feel like in a way it's a little bit like the '90s, but not quite. But it's more ubiquitous for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, 1 second. Just a little bit of technical difficulties here. There we go. Just adjusting my camera for those of you watching the video version of this podcast. So yeah, let's talk about what we're gonna talk about. So we're gonna talk about PSA increasing its prices and wait times. Yay. First they buy their competition, then they raise their prices. This is like straight out of Walmart's playbook or Amazon's playbook. Topps Now came out with a hockey card. Yes, it's an Olympic card, but still it's a Topps hockey card. So I'm going to claim any win we can on that. There is also a Topps Chrome Olympic and Paralympic hopeful set that came out in January. And we're going to talk about that just a little bit because it does have some hockey cards in it, some cards of hockey players. So we'll say hockey cards. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what's been going on in the Olympics. Obviously, depending on when you're listening to this, the men's quarterfinals is about to start, or you might be listening to this and saying, oh, the finals have already started. We actually just are recording this right after it's the Tuesday. So there were some games earlier today. So, we're kind of like now in that like quarterfinal for the men's and then the women's semifinals coming up. So that's what's on the agenda to talk about. So PSA, this is not funny in kind of a sad way, but I don't know. They increased their prices and they're increasing their wait times. So, the funny thing is it seems like when a company raises its prices, they're adding some value to this, right? Like they're saying, like if a restaurant raised its food prices, but then they said, well, we hired more cooks or we hired another chef and we hired more waiters. So now we could get the food made and the food faster, right? You know what I mean? Like you go, okay, well, it's a trade-off and maybe you don't really care about that. But like, I just want my food. I don't care.
You're saying you're paying more for better service. That's okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You're paying more for better service, but I don't know. So like just looking at these prices, I mean, it's just $5. Actually not quite five. Value bulk is going from $21.99 to $24.99. So it's like $4 more. But then 28 to 33 for value plus is going from 45 to 50. I'm sorry, $44.99 to $49.99. I just want to round up by a penny. Wait, do we like pennies or do we not like pennies? Do we talk about pennies or are those?
We got pennies, so it should be just $50 or whatever.
I know, right? It's funny that they're trying. That's less than $50. Well, it's less than $50 by a penny, which is like not even a real thing anymore. I mean, it is. I still have pennies, but I still pay with pennies, and people look at me like I'm weird. Like if I have the change, I'll spend it.
Well, they said it would take 10 years for the penny to disappear, so they're going to stop making it. But we know there's a gajillion pennies out there, right? I mean, right? So, yeah. And also, I'm sure people are paying with PSA with their credit card or sometimes direct payment. No one's actually sending them $49.99 in pennies or anything like that. But these are just the prices. I mean, look, it's psychological. $49.99 feels less than $50, right? Even though it's basically the same thing.
Yeah. So I mean, so we're basically going from 22 to 25. 28 to 33, 45 to 50, 60 to 65 for value max. And then regular is 75 going up to 80. But they did not increase the prices of Express, Super Express, and Walkthrough. And so I kind of like, of course, I don't grade cards, so I can't say that annoys me. I mean, I've only graded cards 2 times. One time I got a free coupon from Beckett to grade 2 cards, so I got 2 cards graded. I had to pay for the shipping, but the actual grading was free. And then like end of 2021, I think I got a couple of cards graded. Because I was just like, well, if I want to, I had some high end hockey cards, and I'm like, well, if I'm ever going to sell these, I should probably get them graded. And I kind of regretted now in hindsight, I regret doing that because not only did I pay a lot to get them graded, because this was during the pandemic. Well, we were reopened, but this was still like during that craze. But I got them slabbed by Beckett because I was like, well, PSA, there's not even, I mean, that might have even been when PSA was in their 1 year shutdown.
Yeah, they weren't taking anything, right? So,
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but then, the other thing is that the wait times have also gone up by basically 5 days. So they're charging you more and it's going to take them another 5 days. And I think what's weird about this is that I feel like most of us would say, like, I just want to get these cards graded and I'll get them back when I get them back. I feel like if you have that card that you want to sell right away, you're paying for one of those high end, over $100. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you're paying $600 for their walkthrough service, which I'm not even quite sure what that is. I think that's couple, I don't know if that's just like grading on the spot or whatever. Like, I don't know. But like, I guess what I'm saying is, like, I feel like the person who's going to spend $600 to get a card graded would spend $650.
Well, so a few things to tackle here. So one, let's talk about the price increase. So for everyone who out there who was saying, "Oh, PSA, it's not a monopoly. They're buying all these other grading companies. It's not a monopoly." People were defending PSA. Well, okay, now not even like what 2 months later, here we are. Price goes up because they control the market, right? So
Mhm.
you can complain about it. What are you going to do? You're going to go to BGS? Okay. You're going to go to Beckett? I mean, what are you going to do? So, yeah. So now they control the market and they can say, you know what, we're going to increase the prices. Okay. That's fine. And their justification is, well, it takes effort and training to train people. We don't have enough people to grade. And you don't want to just get someone off the street and start grading cards, because I'm sure some people have noticed differences in grading. Grading has been kind of all over the place, even when you look at years apart, but even in the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm not saying it's quite like TSA agent or McDonald's employee where there's a lot of turnover, but I can see being a grader not being like a career move for anybody. I can see this being a temporary kind of thing. So that's number one. So they have the market and they can raise the price if they want. The second part you point out is exactly right. For the people looking to get a card that's worth something now because if it's a player who's hot right now and you want to flip it, the increased wait time now that hurts that dealer or the breaker or whoever is in the business of grading just to flip the card. The more time you add to that, the more that player starts to dip potentially, right? So you have to sell a raw, but we all
Right.
know you can sell it for a lot more money if it's a 10, right, or 9, as opposed to raw. Now I don't buy grade. I don't grade cards like you, but I will buy graded cards because it gives me the peace of mind knowing, oh, it's been graded. Also, in my mind, I'd rather spend a little bit more money for a graded card because in my mind, they did the work. They did all the hard work, which was
Right.
paperwork. They mailed it. They had to wait. I mean, the idea of even mailing cards that are worth a lot of money, hoping they come back, that kind of thing. I mean, to me, it always felt like a little bit. I mean, I can see why the express service, which I'm guessing is the GameStop, or if you're due at the National, it's like same day or 2 days, whatever that is. That's different. I think PSA would be better off opening locations or partnering with card shops. I know they're doing a lot of that too. And you can walk in there and they grade on the spot. That would be amazing. But the wait times are gonna happen. Also, they're getting tons of submissions. If you look at the grading numbers every week, every month,
Yeah.
those numbers, I mean, it's a lot of cards. People are still grading, base cards. They're grading a lot of cards. If a player is hot at the moment, they grade that card. I mean, we've all been to shows where literally you can go through like what used to be dollar boxes, but they're like $5 boxes or $10 boxes, and they're all graded cards. And then you look through them, and your first thought isn't, is there a deal here? The first thought is, why did everybody grade these cards?
Right, right.
Which I'm sure
Like,
happened in 2020 and 2019, right before the pandemic, during the pandemic, during the craze. And we're still in that sort of craze, in the sense that the aftermath of the craze is still kind of a wave that hasn't crashed yet. And so PSA is in a unique situation where they can do this. People are going to complain. The most complaints I've seen online are from basically people who have card shops, dealers, because they're the ones who are trying to get cards graded and get them back fast enough for the next show. And the
right.
moment you add wait times and you raise the prices, that impacts everybody on the secondary market, which I think gets them upset. We may never really see the effects of that, you and I, because I don't know. I buy graded cards, but I don't get them graded myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last graded card I bought was a Connor Bedard Young Gun. That was a PSA 9. And I looked at it, and it was a PSA 9. That's like what, near mint? I mean, I looked at it. You look at these things and you go, that could have been a 10, right? But like what the guy wanted to sell it for, I was just like, yeah, I was willing to pay that for a raw card, raw copy. So, in fact, somebody came to my table earlier and they had a Bedard Young Gun, and I said, "Oh, I'll give you this much." And the guy's like, "Oh," it was actually, I think I told the story. It was a kid, a young man, teenager, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to get it graded." And I said, "I'll give you this much for it right now," which I thought was a fair price. And he thought about it, and I said, "Look," I said, "if you get a 10, you've hit it big. I get it." I said, "If you get a 9, what I'm offering you is basically what a 9 would sell for." And he's like, "Well, I'm gonna take my chance." Okay, that's fine. An hour later, a guy came up to me. He's like, "Oh, I got some cards to sell." He looked, he had a 9. I'm like, "What do you want for it?" He said, "This is what I want for it." It was the same price I was willing to pay the other, the young man for the raw card. I said, "Okay, what am I gonna do?" Be like, "Oh, it's in a slab." Like you said, they did the work, and that, I guess, the thing is that it gives whether we agree or disagree with this card. I love it when people like say, "Oh, it's a 9, but it really should be a 10." like it's like they have to like they're not apologizing, but they get defensive. You know
It's
what I
like,
mean?
right, but because you hear a lot of this word popped up big time, and how every year there's a word of the year. If there was a
Mhm.
word of the year in the hobby, it was the word "I appeal,"
Oh,
because
I hate that word.
that became a big buzzword at the national. I remember, because that's a way to say, "Hey, look, I know it's an 8, but it looks really great," especially for vintage, right? It's like, oh, but I noticed this mostly with like Wayne Gretzky's rookie card, where it's
Mhm.
like, that's a 4. That looks really nice. Well, what, compared to like a 1 or compared to a 10? I mean, or an
Right.
11. So I mean, it's all relative, right? And so yeah, it looks really good until you realize, yeah, it's got some wear and tear, it's got whatever crease in the back, maybe whatever. There's a reason why it's a 4. Right.
Yeah.
So so I appeal became a big buzzword. You're right. People have to apologize. But the thing is, I don't like when people want to sell me a card on the speculation that it could be a 10, because I'm like, well, then go ahead and do the work. That's
Yeah.
what I'm
Go regrade it yourself.
Yeah. And then the second part is, there's no shortage of Bedard or McDavid 9s and 10s out there that are graded, because these are new cards. They should all be
Yeah.
9s and 10s. If they're not, that means there was damage, there was some quality control issue, or that you mishandled the card. There's no reason why a Bedard rookie card is a 6. I mean, what happened? Did you drop it? Like, and I guess if you did grade it and got a 6, you would just break it out of the thing, and basically, and sometimes you see that on eBay. You'll see cards that are raw, that are fairly cheap, and then there's always some like big block letter text that says, read, read details. And it's always like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's got 2 bad corners or something. And you're like, do I really want a really good card with 2 bad corners, or do I just wait and get a better version? And then everyone's always looking to upgrade anyway. But look, I think with 2 different discussions, we're talking about vintage, it's one discussion. When it's brand new stuff, it's a different one. So, but getting back to PSA, look, I do think I want to go back to the monopoly angle. I know people don't like that word, but look, it's not surprising they raise their prices. They control the market. People love PSA slabs. They love the look of it, whatever. So they can do whatever they want. I think ultimately people will eat the price increase, because they'll just pass it on to the next person. the seller. We'll pass it on to like the secondary market. It's the wait times I think people are going to be upset with.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's becoming a natural thing unless they can hire more people. And if they hire more people, that means they have to charge more because you know what? They have to pay more people. So that's the other thing too, right? So in a way, like we made the analogy about the waiter and the better service, but better service doesn't mean that comes cheaper. So you might have to wait longer. And if they can hire more people, then maybe they can process more of them. I just still don't understand what the craze is. Either there's too many base cards of really good players, like base rookie cards that people are getting graded, or people are getting stuff graded they shouldn't get graded. And that's maybe still a problem. And PSA can't do that. They can't just say they're not going to reject anyone's business. Like, you want to pay $20 to grade a card that's worth maybe $5? Go for it. This problem happened during the pandemic where junk wax cards of good players. I'm thinking of like the Yager O-Pee-Chee Premier rookie card, which is like a $5 card, $10 card. All of a sudden, in a PSA 10, it was becoming a $200 card. And
yeah, it hit as high as 700 at one
which
time.
is right. So that's the game. It's like, how do I take a card that is mass produced, but a really good player, and then if I add something to, in this case, a PSA 10 slab, all of a sudden now I'm putting it in a unique category, which is not so unique. There's plenty of high grades of that card. But all of a sudden it's like, how do I, take a card that everybody has and it's not worth much and multiply that growth? PSA made money on that. And so this is kind of the after effects that you've created a whole generation of people who think this is the way you collect, this is the way you buy and sell cards, and it's made grading a big deal. And I think because we all grew up collecting at a time when grading was either brand new or didn't exist,
right?
We still look at grading as this extra thing on the side. But there's people who think grading is an integral part of their collecting. It's just not what we do. And I do buy graded cards, of course. Like when I bought a Wayne Gretzky rookie card, I bought it graded. I wasn't going to buy some raw card that was fake, right? But that's fine. I have graded cards in my collection, but I didn't grade them. The work has been done for me, and so maybe I'm part of the problem. But it turns out that this has become the new normal, and now PSA has to deal with that.
Yeah. So a couple of things I just want to mention here, some quotes. So PSA on their website said, to better align submission volume with grading capacity and support more predictable turnaround expectations, we've made updates to pricing across select service levels for new submissions. So, okay, they're just basically saying to better align. But actually, before I interpret that quote, Ryan Hogue, the collectors of president of grading for collectors, he told this one podcast called the Neo Cards and Comics Podcast, instead of having to push turnaround times up further, especially for our entry-level bulk service tiers, we decided to implement a price increase to hopefully tamp down on a little bit of the demand coming in to more balance out with our current grading supply. So in other words, he's just to me, that's just basically, both of these basically mean we're increasing the price of the low end stuff, the low end grading, to try to reduce the demand. So that's like saying people are buying sodas for $1. We don't want them to drink the $1 sodas. We want them to drink the $5 beers. Let's make the soda $4.50. Well, now people will just say, screw it. I'm going to spend the extra 50 cents and get a beer. True story. I was at a concert. I wanted a bottle of water. The bottle of water was $6. The beer was $5. I bought me a beer, had the beer, used the paper cup, went to the water fountain, refilled it as many times as I wanted, which I know that sounds ridiculous, but I mean, you get my point, right? I guess I should have bought the bottled water. It might have even been like $4 and $6 or $5 and $8. I don't know. It was just stupid. You know what I mean? Like, I just thought, I didn't really need the bottle of water. I just needed a cup to get water.
When you were talking about the prices of drinks, I thought you were talking about that first trade night I went to at the expo. I kid.
Oh my God, dude.
For people who know that story, they know what we're talking about. If they don't know, we don't want to get into it. But
No, I gotta tell, like Clemente just basically, like if you ever seen like the cartoon of Garfield eating the lasagna, that was Clemente with this giant bowl of potato. I mean, like this was like a big bowl of potato. This bowl was probably like 2.5 feet across. It was huge. It was a wide
In my
bowl.
defense, it was one of those like homemade type of chips. They've got a name. I don't know what they are.
Kettle
but
chips.
Yeah, kettle chips.
Yeah, they were good, but they were salty as hell.
Right. And so we were at the trade night at the expo. This is like 3 years ago now. We're hanging out. It wasn't much of a trade night, or maybe it was what trade night should be, but we just wasn't for us. And
Right.
we were there, and they gave us all those chips. And then all of a sudden, when it came time to like, hey, let's
Get something to drink.
You went to get soda, and then you came back empty-handed and said,
no, like they're like, I'd like 2 sodas, please. And they're like, oh, you got to buy tickets. And I go, okay. So I go over and I go, how many tickets do I need for a soda? They're like, oh, a ticket is $5. And I'm like, 1 soda for 1 ticket. And I'm just like, okay, 2 sodas, $10. And then I look back over at the guy and he's like, literally, it's just a can of pop that he's pouring into a cup. And I just said to Clemente, no, man, sorry. I said, if you were like choking, yes, I would get you something to drink, but let's just go and get food. Yeah. Go real.
I'm not sure if there's a full analogy here, but I understand what the company is saying. We're trying to weed those people out because we don't want to be bothered with the $1 cards that you can sell for $10, even though it costs you 15 to grade. We don't want that. We want the high-end stuff. There's plenty of high-end and middle tier cards to get graded, especially vintage.
Right.
And I understand that's the company's way of saying, you know what, this card is not worth much. Please don't submit it. Now, look, if they wanted, though, they could always put out a list of cards saying, look, cards from these sets, we don't want them unless they're these names. I mean, they could create parameters if they really wanted, and then maybe somebody else can grade them. I mean, there's, at any given time, there's like 5 grading companies, but PSA has such a big dominance of the market and such a brand recognition. People really think that if it's graded by PSA, it's the best and it's going to be worth the most. And so that's what they go for. And I understand that, PSA kind of created this monster and now they're trying to tame it, which is interesting. Look, we'll see what happens. I mean, ultimately, price of everything goes up over time. I think that it comes at a really weird time. It comes right before the National, but it also comes right after that big announcement where they had bought.
Yeah.
So, they're in the news all the time, it seems, for not great things, which is, it's going to take longer to get your cards. People don't like that. It's going to cost more to get your cards. People don't like that. So all of a sudden now you're in the news for lots of, and this is still the hobby in growth mode, I think. And this is just one of the growing pains or part of the pain points that comes with still having lots of people in the hobby who are new or newish and think this is the way they need to buy and sell cards. And a lot of more people are making a living now in the hobby. Like, for us, it's a hobby. That's what's called the hobby, right? It's not my job. And when it becomes your full-time job, then all this matters a lot more than it to us.
Right.
And so that's part of it too.
So, couple of things. No more trading card game bulk rate. The price and service levels remain unchanged for comic books, magazines, video games, tickets, packs, and other grading categories. So I guess TCGs maybe had a cheaper bulk rate once upon a time. I don't know what that price used to be, but maybe they were trying to grow that.
I don't know either, but apparently when we're talking about lots of cards flooding into PSA, a lot of them are TCG cards, like they're not worth much because I think there's much more speculation on Pokemon, and it's not just Pokemon now. It's Yu-Gi-Oh, it's One Piece, it's a lot of these, Dragon Ball Z, like any kind of it's extended itself. It's a much bigger market, and those sets, I don't even know how they work. They have hundreds, maybe thousands of cards in those sets of all kinds of characters, and people get those graded, and that really floods PSA almost more than the sports stuff does. And so, PSA doesn't discriminate between TCG or sports. Them are just cards. They come in, they grade them, they go out. Right. So
yeah,
that's the thing.
And I guess it's okay. I mean, a card's a card.
Sure.
At least, when you're grading it, I guess. So according to the PSA website, they grade 90,000 cards per day globally. So that's counting their offices in Japan and in Europe, and they opened a Toronto office, but
Yeah.
I think that still sends to California. And something you said, they should probably have more stuff in the United States. I mean, they should really have a New York office. They should I thought they were in Texas, but I think they're in California, PSA.
I think you're right, 'cause I think the Canadian submission goes there, I think.
Goes to California. I know that like Beckett's in Texas and Panini's in Texas, and I'm tired of everything being in Texas. Like at least Tops is in New York, right? But like and Fanatics, of course. But
Fanatics,
like
that's right.
I feel that like if you want people to send cards, I mean, look, if I would rather send to, well, even if let's say like I lived in Iowa, I'd rather send to Chicago than to California. You know what I mean? Just something closer. Or if you're in Philadelphia, send to New York. You know what I mean? Like there should be,
Yeah, regional facilities, yeah, it would make more
yeah.
sense.
I mean, instead of just like we send it all to one place, so now one place has is doing 90,000. Well, maybe not that many, but basically distribute the load instead of it all just going to one place.
And by doing that, you could also then have diversify your workforce because you'd have people in different parts of the country as opposed to like how many people grade cards who live in that particular state. That's going to be specific, or people have to move there for that job as opposed to like, well, we have 6 locations around the country, or
Right.
Yeah, that would make more sense. But I also understand you have to pay for rent and you have to rent facilities, and that costs more
But they're
money.
making so much money.
I know they are. I know, but that would incur more costs on the front end, and they don't want that. Probably they want to maximize their profits.
I mean, I looked into being a grader for Beckett just to see what that job would entail. And it was like, must be willing to move to Texas. And I'm like, oh, okay, well then, pass.
They had you on the
Hard.
first point. You're like, move to Texas. I'm out.
Well, no, and I mean, it was the same with Panini when I applied for a job with them, and they're like, "Oh, you'd have to move to Texas." So I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I understood that because I thought that was pursuing a dream job, which obviously didn't happen. So I guess it wasn't meant to be." But like, but then I couldn't make fun of Panini anymore, so I don't know.
But
But
I know what you mean but that's a different type of job. If you're going to be in an office and pick photos and design cards, that's different.
yeah,
That's a collaborative
yeah,
effort. But grading, I almost look at it as kind of like a it's like a factory almost. Like there's workstations, there's people grading. I don't know how many cards they grade a day per person, but it's a lot of work because then you have
mhm,
to have them. I mean, look, when we go to the national, you see them working back there, at the PSA booth, and the turnaround's like a day or two or whatever they do there. But it's like they're working frantically there to do that. They can't do that on a day to day, obviously. So
right.
that's part of the issue. But yeah, look, I think as a company, as you're getting more customers, more clients, you have to find a way to expand. Otherwise, if you still have the same headcount, the same buildings,
Mhm.
it may not work. I mean, I can only imagine what their mail intake looks like, and outtake. That alone, it's got to be like the post office, basically.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, just to give a little perspective though, so in 2021 they were grading 15,000 cards a day. So what is this? 67. So that's 6 times more. So I mean, a day. That's crazy. So, at $25 a card for the cheapest tier. So two questions. Does this mean the end of junk slabs? And by junk slabs, we're talking about where you were digging through those boxes and for looking through graded cards for $5-10 and saying, why the heck would anybody get these cards graded? Right. Well, I know that like, especially prior to the pandemic, but maybe even during the beginning of the 2020, 2021, a lot of people would get like base cards or common cards graded because they'd say, well, I know it's a 25-cent card, but there's no PSA 10 version of this 25-cent card. So now all of a sudden it becomes a $25 card. Now, when grading would be sometimes as cheap as $5, $10, depending on the bulk submission. I mean, I remember going to the Chicago Sports Spectacular and they couldn't give away grading. you'd see there'd be no line at the PSA booth. There'd be no line at the Beckett booth. They would be there. They'd be accepting grading. Now, this is a 3-day regional show and not the national, but still, it's the next best thing. And they're always there at this show. But like, it was like they almost couldn't give it away. And now it's like they can't grade things fast enough. So, like back then, I feel like people were like, oh, well, I might as well get some cards of players that I like graded because I like the way it looks. Or I want to try to get a PSA 10 of this 9091 Pro Set Wayne Gretzky card, right? And then what is this? So the two questions, is this the end of junk slabs? And what will this do for unwanted graded cards already present in the hobby? What I mean by that is that graded cards are a big part of repacks. You have stuff like Diamond Club. Is that called Diamond Club?
But you're right about the repacks where they throw in the one slab card, which, if it's a junk slab, it doesn't matter because it's like, well, you try your luck,
Right. And even like, what is it? Like, I don't think Hit Parade is graded, but I think that like DA Card World does some sort of like graded blind like repack.
Yeah, everyone's doing repacks now. I mean,
and even Steel City is doing some sort of hockey where you get like one graded card per pack, right? So I guess what this means is like, in order to fuel that business, is that going to make those junk slabs more desirable? Because somebody comes to my table, I have a bunch of cards that are PSA 8s or BGS 8.5s, not PSA 10s. And will the repackers be like, oh, I'll buy all your slabs off of you? So is this going to create, because it's cheaper to go to Sal or Clemente or whomever is setting up at a show. I know you don't set up at a show, but whomever has 100 of these slabs, junk slabs, and just be like, yeah. So is this going to create a demand for it?
Yeah. So repackers will go to shows and buy up inventory. So that does fuel demand. So that demand will be there. Now, I think so much of that stuff was already graded. It's like the pennies you were talking about. They're out there in the world, and there's still an abundance of it. But you're right, it will continue to grow. The other thing about the $25, whatever, why would anybody grade these cards? Some of the cards I have seen that were graded were clearly rookies that they were speculating on that didn't pan out. So, for example, if you make it a habit to say, I will grade every Young Gun card that comes out this year because you never know which one of these is going to break through, because maybe the number 1 draft pick isn't the only one that's going to break through. Maybe it's the number 10 pick, the number 15 pick, or some guy you never heard of from 3 years ago who then suddenly is having a great playoff. And I have it slabbed. I slabbed it. It's a 10, and now I can throw it back out there into the market, and I got it slabbed. So that will never go away because speculation on rookies is basically the bread and butter of this industry. So that's not going away. So there's a couple of things that, despite the prices, I think PSA will not be able to fend off because now it's part of the collecting culture. Repackers and the speculation on rookies, that I don't know how those two, I mean, it may mitigate the other junk slabs, but those are here to stay. I think that they're not going anywhere. And so we'll see. Maybe we'll see if the numbers start to plateau. It'd be curious to see what the numbers per day, or per week, what they look like in a month or 2 months from now. And definitely we'll look at that to see, is it working or is it going up? If it's going up, people don't care. Right. I mean, this is like, this is the analogy is like your favorite restaurant, your favorite soft drink. If the price goes up and you still like it, you're still going to eat it. You're still going to drink it, and you'll just pay more. You're like, that's the cost of this indulgence.
Right. Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, like I think that actually I'll tell you this, like I used to joke. I said if I had all the money in the world, I would just send in Pro Set hockey cards to get graded. Like not even because I really care. I would just do it just to be a troll. Right? Like, oh, it's another 5,000 Pro Set cards from Sal Berry that need to be graded, right? But, and I would just do it just to be a troll, like, because if like money was no object, what I
guess one last point on this too is to say that there are people out there who love a particular set, and that Pro Set from that year is something that we all love. And if you had the money, you're like, you know what? What if I got every card from that set graded and put it on my wall? I mean, whatever. If you have all the money in the world, it doesn't matter, right? So but there are people like that in this business, in this hobby, where people money is no object. I've seen like the 1984 Fleer, like the Jordan rookie, but the whole set is graded. That's like a big flex to say I got the whole set and the whole thing's graded, and all of them are 9s or 10s or whatever they're doing, right? So there are people doing that for iconic sets, like the mantle card from Topps. Card.
52,
People
yeah.
want to get that whole set graded if they have the money to do that. I mean, there's people out there doing stuff like that. That's not what causing the problem, though. The problem is being caused by the factors we mentioned earlier, and that's different.
So, changing gears, I want to talk about a Topps Now hockey card. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised by this because, well, first of all, I sign up for Topps emails and they never email me, and I don't know why. And then I always find out about this stuff through the grapevine, through the back door, or just by dumb luck. I mean, I know that they do their Topps Now hockey stickers, and I mention those every week in my newsletter. I was updating, I was sending out the newsletter for last week, Friday, and I, just without even thinking, oh, Olympic hockey is going on, there's not going to be any NHL stickers for the week. Just out of routine, I just went to Topps, clicked on hockey, and I'm like, oh, a Brock Nelson card. Okay, that's different. So they are doing a Topps Now Olympic set of all the different sports. But the one for Brock Nelson, third generation Olympian, shines in Team USA debut, because his, he had, I think it's his uncle was on the 1980 team, Dave Christian, and then he has another relative who was on the 1956 team. So he's like third generation in the Olympics for Team USA. But now here's the thing. The card was like $9 and I almost bought it. Like I almost bought it. Now, I don't know if you knew this or not. Do you know that they now charge for shipping? Because Topps used to be free. They used to say,
right,
select Saver shipping and get it for free. And this is for the people who would buy their Topps Now hockey stickers and say, oh, I could wait for these Connor Bedard stickers. I don't need to have them overnighted to me once they print. I could wait the 7 to 10 days, right? But recently, maybe this year, because I placed another order earlier, and it was like if the order is under a certain amount, they charge you $3 to ship. So I was like, I don't want more than, I just want this one card. There was no other hockey stuff that I wanted. And I was like, $9. Of course, if you buy 5, if you buy 10, if you buy 20, then you get more, and then it's cheaper. But I'm like, well, first of all, I don't even really need one Brock Nelson card. I've never said, oh, you know who I want to collect? Brock Nelson. Now, I'm sure there are people who collect his cards. I'm not one of them.
Or these people who collect USA cards. But I want to say the same thing you said, Top.
Yeah.
I get Topps emails too, but I get them only if Series 1 comes out or something massive. I don't get emails about this. That's number one. And number two, you're right. I find out through the back door. Normally that's Tim who tells us, hey, have you seen this? It's like, oh no, I didn't. And I didn't know. I should have assumed there were Olympic cards. And I think I knew that. I just didn't think they could make Olympic ones hockey ones, because, and I don't know what the answer to this is, but like the image you have here, for example, if you go to the Topps Now site right now, they have a Frankel card, the women's hockey goalie. She's making a save. They have one of those cards, super nice looking. But like this card of Brock Nelson, you can see the USA on her chest and all the Olympic stuff. But then when you look at the Olympic set that we're going to talk about soon, they had to airbrush all that out. So I'm very confused as to why some things are okay on some cards and why some of them are not. Maybe because those are in packs and this is a Topps Now thing. I don't know. But I've never been a big Topps Now fan, because these cards generally don't hold their value. And the way Fanatics has set it up is they want to push Topps Now, but there's always the caveat of, if you buy more, there's always that chance you can get the autograph version, which is remember they did that with the basketball team in at the Olympics 2 years ago in Paris, right? And that card became huge. It was Steph Curry and LeBron, whatever it was. And yeah, if I buy 10 of these and one of them is the autograph version, wow, amazing. But most likely it's not going to be, because there's only one of those. And there's a million of these made, and so yeah, cool. Like, look, if the USA were to win the gold medal, men or women or both, and they made a card of it, that'd be really cool. But again, there's still this discrimination in our hobby about pack pull versus on demand, tops now, or game day
Right.
moments, whatever. So there's always that thing. But I do think Tops is very, I mean, they have the Fanatics money and backing, obviously, but
Mhm.
they're not so good about promoting what they have, unless they just think that people who love Tops visit their homepage every single day. I don't, you know.
No, no, I visit it once a week for to look into the hockey stickers.
Right.
And this particular card was only available, like they launched it Friday after I sent my newsletter. So like it was announced Friday the 13th or whatever the
Always
13th.
a tight window. It's a very tight window generally
Yeah,
because
13th to 16th. It was only available for a couple of days, and there was no autograph version. Of course, there were like numbered parallels, like the one of one gold, the black version, the blue version, whatever. And you know what I ended up doing is ended up just going on eBay because somebody is going to buy. So there are people who will buy 20 of this card,
yeah, yeah.
and then they get them for that better price. And then they sell them for like $5-6 a piece. And so I ended up just buying this card for $5. I think with tax, it was like free shipping, but with tax, I think I spent like $5.30. And that's kind of what I want to spend on a print on demand card. I mean, I look at these prices like, like Leaf started doing Sports Illustrated for kids
I saw this.
cards.
They're football cards mostly, right?
There are football and maybe pickleball, but
Yeah.
no hockey. And I'm just like, okay, but is it an 11.99 thing? I mean, when they relaunched Pro Set and they made a card of is it Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the first Pro Set card that they made when they reacquired the license. And I said, all right, this is the first Pro Set card, like sports card, since like 92.
30 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was excited. So I bought it just to have it because I was like, all right, this is kind of a cool thing. Now you could find it for like a couple of bucks at a store. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I like the idea of print on demand cards, but yeah, they don't hold their value. They're too expensive. All the things that you said.
I mean, the fact that this is on the website for $9 and you literally bought it the next day for cheaper.
No, wasn't even the next day. I was going to buy this, and then I said, let me
time.
go to eBay, and somebody was doing a pre-sale on it, because they had already ordered 20 of them.
Yeah, and they just
40
take
of
the
them.
image from the website and
Yep.
they're selling it on speculation. They know they're going to get their shipment in 10 days anyways, right?
Yep, I've done that with stickers where I go, especially with like the Tops Now stickers, you have to buy them in a 5-pack. So I go, oh, there's a Patrick Kane sticker. I want that for my Patrick Kane collection because I have like a binder full of Kane cards. And then I go, oh, I don't want to buy 5 of them for $14.99 plus $3 shipping plus 10% tax. And all of a sudden, these 5 stickers come out to like $20 and I only want one. So then I go on eBay and somebody is buying a 20-pack and getting them for, the stickers at a cheaper price. And then they're selling them for like $5. And I'm okay with that. All right. So now these Chrome Olympic hockey cards, which if you're a hockey card collector and you like Olympics, this is right in your wheelhouse. Of course, I like all things hockey. And I think that obviously there's plenty of upper deck stuff out there, but I like it when we can kind of find these hockey cards in other places. I know Panini tried doing that when it was it Kravtsov. Was that the Rangers player?
It was Capo Caco.
Capo Caco. Oh, okay. Sorry, Capo Caco. When they did like print on demand cards of him or something that didn't go over really well because nobody wanted Capo Caco, and especially with the Rangers logo or letters airbrushed out. And actually, we kind of see this here now, which is interesting with these 2026 Topps Chrome U.S. Winter Olympic and Paralympic team hopefuls, which were released middle of January of this year. It's a 200 card set, but it does feature some hockey players. It's got 8 women's players from the 2026 team, 4 men's players from the 2026 team, 2 men's players from the Miracle on Ice team, and then also 6 para sled hockey players for 2026, and the Paralympics start later. Some of the players, so Hillary Knight, Alex Carpenter, Aaron Frankel, Kayla Barnes, Haley Wynn, Hannah Bilka, Haley Shimura, and Tessa Janicki. They have 2 cards each. And then on the men's side, Jack Eichel, Jack Hughes, Jake Gunsel, Jake Ottinger. A lot of J's there. We got Jack, Jake,
Your
and
name
Jake.
has to be Jake or Jack to get a card in the set, or Micah Ruzioni.
Or Micah Ruzioni, who basically Micah Ruzioni could be in a baseball set. He's Micah Ruzioni. You know, he should be in every set the Tops puts out. Goodwin Champions, make a card of Micah Ruzioni. You know, just make it happen. He deserves it. So Jack O'Callahan and Ruzioni have 2 cards each, and then Jack, and Jack have 1 card each. And I don't know why they did that. Like, I guess I could see, like, you'd say, yeah, we want 2 cards of Hillary Knight. I don't know why the NHL players only got 1 card each. I don't know why they airbrushed out the logos. That has to do with.
I know why they airbrushed the logos, because remember a couple of months ago, Upper Decks, they made a deal with USA Hockey. So that must have ended any idea, any thought of putting logos on this had to end the moment that deal went into place, which must have been before this checklist was put together. So yeah, so that did that. And I'd be curious to see what the Micah Ruzioni card has, because maybe if he's wearing his uniform, if the photo is from 1980, maybe they can show that. I have no idea.
Well, here's the card from 1980, and as you can see, there's no USA on the front.
No, right. It looks very strange. I mean, is that Jack Hughes in the other card?
Yeah, it's Eichel.
He looks like a speed skater almost, because you can't see anything on him. So it just looks it looks like if people buy Don Russ baseball cards, they have a deal with the Players Union, but not with Major League Baseball, right? That Topps has that. So all the guys are wearing what's called pajama cards, right? They were in pajamas. Yeah. Now this is not quite pajamas because it's not baseball uniform, but it looks very strange. And to some people, that's a big no-no. Like, they don't want cards that are not licensed for that reason. They look weird. Now, I will say the Jack Hughes card, I've seen the autographed version, and it looks pretty good. Now, there's sticker autos, of course, but it looks pretty good. And if you're a big fan of Jack Hughes or some of the other players on the list, it's worth getting. I mean, I've gotten this set before in the past, but it was never chrome. It was always a paper version.
Yeah.
I remember buying it in 2020 for the Summer Olympics, and it was actually 2021 because of the pandemic. And it's cool when you're watching the Olympics to open these packs. But when I saw that these were chrome, and I didn't look at the checklist, I was like, look, I'm not interested. And if I had known there was hockey on it, I mean, I've actually been to my LCS a couple of times, including David Adams in New York, the new David Adams store. And they've got blasters of this all over the place. And I've passed on it. And now I'm intrigued. But at the same time, if I like an individual card, I might just do what you said, go to eBay and buy an individual card as opposed to $30 for a blaster. Then you end up getting a bunch of people you don't want and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I could do without the 2 men bobsled cards.
Yeah, it's not my thing. I don't collect that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then there's also inserts, parallels, and autographs. And on screen here, if you're watching the podcast, so here's a card of Hillary Knight. Do you recognize that design? I bet you do.
That looks like is it 1987 football?
Oh, wait, what year are we in? This is 2026. So they would, being tops, they would use 1980. Yes, because that's exactly. So
I remember the football ones were green and white. With that.
Sorry.
With that design, but it was green and white. I remember that set from '86.
Now, obviously, the scan of a chrome card doesn't do it any justice. It probably looks a little nicer, kind of like when you scan an O-Pee-Chee Platinum card. They always look dark.
Yeah.
But this specific design only really works for football. It doesn't really work for hockey. Having the stripes, the gridiron look, the white stripes against the green or whatever, this doesn't really work for this. So that's why I put that in there, because I'm just like, well, okay, it's a set I like, because 86 football was I mean, I bought a lot of football that year because
No,
the
but you
Bears
know,
won in
yeah.
'85, so or early '86 they won. So that fall, everybody was
But
collecting
there's so many
football cards.
iconic. I know it's not an anniversary year, but there's so many iconic tops, baseball or even hockey.
They should have used the hockey to 85, 86. They could have used the Mario Lemieux rookie year
Yeah,
design, and
yeah,
that would have been awesome.
right. So there's nothing right. So if they want to harken back to an anniversary, don't pick the football one, pick the hockey one, or pick
Right.
something that's maybe works for all the sports. I mean, does it really matter for bobsled? Because they never had a card before. It doesn't matter, right? So, but yeah, it's funny, like all these sets, like there seems like there's a lot of thought put into it, and then you realize, well, they didn't put that much thought into it. They put just enough thought into it to be able to pump it out.
All right, so let's talk about some ice hockey at the Olympics. I want to talk about the women's tournament first so far. Obviously, this is still going on, but we pretty much have our bronze medal game set and our gold medal game set coming up this week. So, just looking at the standings, Group A and Group B, USA went undefeated. Finished at the top of Group A. Sweden finished at the top of Group B. But what's it called? USA, okay, and Sweden, they also went undefeated in the round robin play. But I mean, just look at the goals, right? USA scored the most goals with 20. They allowed the least goals with 1. They allowed exactly 1 goal. They had 5 shutouts so far. Finland scored the least amount of goals, which is surprising. They only scored 3 goals. And then Switzerland allowed the most goals, 15. But then when they played, did you watch the Canada-Swiss game? I think it was yesterday.
I did not watch that one, no.
Well, Canada only won. Let me make sure I believe it was Switzerland. Yeah, they won 2-1. It was such a close game. So even though USA, or even though Switzerland allowed the most goals in the tournament, they only held Canada to 2
Well, it's
goals.
funny. I was watching that game. I remember, but I turned it off, I think, when they were up 2-0, and I thought, oh, like many games this tournament, this is going to be a third period bloodbath. I turned it off, and I later found out they won, but didn't know it was only 2-1. So there you go. I mean, because there's been a lot of games at this tournament, both men and women, especially on the men's side, where even like a team like Italy, which finished last in the tournament, is good for a period or two, and then the third period is always like, well, they fall apart because the other team is shooting 45 times their goalie. The guy's
Right.
never going to give up a couple of goals, right? So in the women's side, the U.S. has been obviously the most dominant, and we should recall that the U.S. beat Canada 5-0.
Yes.
In the preliminary stage. So
Yes.
everyone's billing this championship, this gold medal game, as like these two titans. And Canada's a good team, but I think the U.S. is heavily favored to win this thing, and they would deserve to win it, I think, given the way they were playing. I mean, they're playing amazingly.
Yeah, I mean, 2 ways you could look at that. It could be like, well, sometimes you see USA beat Canada, and then later on when they meet in the finals, then Canada beats it's almost like they figured it out. I mean, think back to the 4-nation face-off last year. I know that was a men's tournament, but USA won the round robin match, but then lost the final.
Right.
I mean, even like the women though, like I was watching the USA versus Italy, and I don't remember, but it was something. I think USA won 6-0.
Yes.
And I think Italy got exactly 6 shots on net. So it was a shutout. But I mean, when you allow 6 shots on net, and that's not to be disrespectful to anybody, but I think USA had like 40 or 50 shots. It was really just, yeah.
Well, look, so a couple of things to dissect here. First of all, Yeah, the U.S. has been totally dominant. Even Canada, which is in the gold medal game, I wouldn't say they're dominant. But the women's tournament, I noticed this year a couple of things. Like the Italians, they're the hosts, but they
Yep.
got into the quarterfinal stage, which I think was the first time they ever advanced out of the group. So that's amazing.
Hmm.
Like in women's soccer, you're seeing an expansion of talent. Like you're seeing countries like Switzerland and Finland and Czechia, and where women are playing the sport as well. That's number one. Number two, the other thing I noticed too is you're seeing a lot of PWHL players. So just
Yeah.
like the men's side is dominated by NHL players, it's nice to see like Hilary Knight and Marie-Philippe Poulin and all these other players that people are watching on the regular now.
Yep.
And the PWHL is being mentioned a lot during games because a lot of these players know each other. And so it just shows so for me, yeah, the U.S. is heavily favored, and USA Canada is always a great final, great championship game, gold medal game. But at the same time, I think this tournament was about, can women's hockey expand in terms of talent, in terms of depth, in terms of more countries playing it. And I think with every Olympics, the women's side gets better and better. Like it reminds me a little bit of softball, where the U.S. was so dominant on the women's side that they got rid of softball. They were like, only the U.S. women win this tournament. And then
Right.
they got rid of it. Japan, I think, won. It'd be nice to see maybe the next Olympics. And of course, we want Team USA to win, but if it's not USA Canada, but it would be Canada Germany or USA Switzerland, or even better, like Finland versus Germany or something, then you would see an expansion, and maybe that will happen over time. I mean, this is still a sport where Canada, US on the women's side totally dominate, but as more foreign players, international stars come to play in the PWHL, as the game expands across the world, I do think you'll see the traditional men's powers like Sweden and Finland and in Norway and all that. Then they'll start to that'll slide over to the women's side. I mean, the women have a lot of time to catch up. I mean, women have not played at this level, as long as men have. Men have been playing for decades and decades, and it takes time for society to adapt to that. But I think the women's tournament has been pretty spectacular. And like I said, you're right. Even though the US beat Canada pretty handily, you're right. You can learn from that game. And when this game on Thursday, anything can happen. I mean, Canada could come out and win this game, and it's totally possible. It's not like it's not possible. So yeah, but look, like on the men's side, ideally you get a USA Canada, gold medal game. That's what everybody is looking for. And the way the tournament is set up, it almost feels like it's set up to have those two teams on a collision course.
Well, one thing I will say, so goal differential, like how many goals you score versus how many goals you allow and whatnot, that is a tiebreaker. So this isn't kind of like, like if the Rangers are beating the Islanders 3-1 or 4-1, they're going to kind of maybe play a little more defensive. And maybe we're seeing that here too. But like, in other tournaments, we've seen games be like 10-1, 11-2 or whatever, because there's that incentive, because goals is a tiebreaker. I mean, I remember like even in my men's league, like what we got our asses kicked like 2 games in a row, and then we were playing a really weak team, and we basically just ran the table. And I told my guys, I said, look, if we want to get into the playoffs, we just need to keep pouring on goals. And I know that's shitty, so let's not like celebrate all these, because I think we beat this team like 10-0. I remember like grabbing the puck and giving it to our goalie because he got a shutout, and he looked at me and he goes, I made 2 saves the whole game, but thank you. Right. You know what I mean? But then it was just like, I said, well, we were kind of like in the third 3-way tie, so we needed those goals. And so there's that incentive here to score the goals. But a lot of these games, I'm looking at them, and I know like 6-1 is not necessarily a close score, but this isn't like the 13-1 that we were getting a couple years back.
Right.
A couple of women's Olympics ago, or women's hockey in the Olympics, say 2014. I remember like, Canada would beat Russia like 10-1 or something. I don't know if that was the actual score, but what I'm saying is like that gap was a lot wider. And now the gap is a little bit more like 2-0. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so, or yeah, 5-1. All right, well, at least they're getting on the board. Or Italy beating Japan 3-2. I mean, I know Japan's not a powerhouse, but like,
well, Japan's women's team is actually pretty good, but Italy's is not. So you're starting to see, like you said, closer games. I mean, even 5-1 is better than a 12-1. for sure.
Right. So, yeah. So I mean, so we got the bronze medal game between Sweden and Switzerland, and that is going to be on February 19th, and then also on February 19th, we're going to have the gold medal game, USA versus Canada. So it's been like that almost every Olympic except 2006, I think, was when Sweden they upset the US. I mean, that was a big deal. And then they ended up taking silver in that tournament. So that's been, that's been when I've been able to watch the games, because like, all my teaching right now is like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So like Friday I was able to watch games, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then like I said, if I could even like if I have time in between classes, I'd hop on a computer in my office and then just like watch some hockey.
I'm also an early riser, so there's always games on early morning East Coast time, like 6 a.m. because in Italy it's like 2 p.m. So during the preliminary rounds, there were games in the morning, and I will say, both on the men's and women's side, even the games that were lopsided in the end, most of those games were tight in the second, up until the second period, and then of course things, the wheels came off maybe, but it was rare that a team was up 6-0 in the first period. And so that made the games exciting as you watch them. And there was just an overabundance of them. I know we're going to talk about the men's side. The men's tournament has been, it always is very good, but this is one of the better ones, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I remember watching the U.S. versus Latvia. Was it Latvia? And it was like, I'm trying to find against Latvia. And I want to say it was like 1-1, and then they just basically broke it open. And then even the same with like Denmark, it was kind of tight, and then they broke it open. And then even against Germany, like it was like 1-1, I think, like at the end of the first, and then they just like broke it open after that. So yeah, I mean, the games, you're right, they'd be tight, and then they'd either end tight and like the favored team would win 2-1 or 3-2, because like the other team couldn't, and when I say the other team, I mean like a Switzerland type of team, you know what I mean? That might be able to force an upset, but didn't, or it would just, end up being 7-2 or 6-1 or something. So, at the, sorry, go ahead.
I think the key with the men's tournament, like the women's tournament, is it's just a short tournament that basically every game almost feels like a playoff game. So every game is high stakes, even the first one, because only 3 games in the first round. And if you want to be able to finish first or be able to get a seed to go into the quarterfinal play-in or whatever it is. So every game feels like a playoff game. So a couple of things have to happen. One, you need to have a lot of possession. And so that's why you see the better teams are putting up like 45, 50 shots a game. That's not unusual. That's number one. And number two, winning faceoffs are key then, because you want to keep possession, and that matters. And like you mentioned, running up the score. It's not about running up the score in the group stage or in the preliminary round. It's because goal differential matters as a tiebreaker. So all those factors come together, and then you have to have a hot goalie, just like in the playoffs, right?
Yep.
If you have all those things happening for you, then you're a very good team. And so that's why on the women's side, the U.S. has been able to do so well. I mean, to get to the gold medal game, the U.S. is pretty much it's been a cakewalk. The men's side, we're going to talk about that now. That's a little different, because I do think this tournament, once you inject NHL players into it, it totally goes up. I mean, I remember watching 4 years ago and thinking it was a good tournament, and now in comparison, it's like once you put NHL players in, I mean, have you watched Canada play? I mean, it's unbelievable what they're doing.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, they're obviously, when you have all those guys that we talked about before, McDavid and Crosby and McCarr and
you have this like what I like to call 3 generations of players. You have Crosby, McDavid, and then Celebrini.
Yeah.
I mean, Celebrini is playing. He's like the MVP of the men's tournament for now.
Yeah, he's doing good.
Yeah, and that's unbelievable. He's a kid. He's only 18 years old. He's only been in the league. This is year 2 for him in the league.
Right.
So it's nice to see a player that young doing so well. But then you have like someone like McDavid, who's like getting 3-4 assists a game. So it's interesting what the Canadians are doing, and then obviously the Americans are doing very well. But to me, the Americans are a much more of a blue collar team compared to the Canadians, who are like this well-oiled machine. But we'll talk about more about that as we get into it.
Yeah, so just a couple of stats here. So USA and Canada went undefeated, 3 games, 3 wins, 0 losses, all regulation wins. Canada scored the most goals in the preliminary round with 20 goals, and Italy scored the least with 4 goals. France allowed the most goals, which was 20, and then Canada allowed the least goals, which is 3. So just 3 goals. I mean, 3 games, 3 goals. That's pretty good. USA, I mean, allowed 5 goals, should have been 3. Swayman didn't do so well. I don't want to bag on Jeremy Swayman, but in that game against Denmark, he just didn't. I mean, whatever. They won 6-3. It's a win. A win is a win, and it was a pretty healthy win. But
was close, but that the third period broke it open.
Yeah.
That was a game where up until the third period, and I will say Denmark has been a surprise team at this tournament. I mean, I know that they haven't advanced past the quarterfinal stage, but they were a tough team to play against. And Czechia found that out. Was it today? They played them this morning, and it was close.
I thought Czechia was going to do better than they did. This is why I don't make predictions, because a couple weeks back when Tim and I did our initial talk about Olympic hockey, I picked them to be the dark horse. I said, yeah, we're going to say USA, Canada, but who is going to surprise? And I'm thinking, well, the Czech Republic, they have so many good, there's so many good Czech players in the league. And yet it's the Slovak team that's been the big surprise.
Okay, so you hit the nail on the head. So Group B, a group with Slovakia, Finland, Sweden, and Italy. Nobody had Slovakia winning that. I mean, Finland and Sweden had totally underperformed at this tournament, and everyone had Sweden winning or Finland winning a bronze or getting
right.
And that looks like it may not be the case. And no, it may turn out that way, but Slovakia is a surprise team, and Czechia is has not performed. I mean, they ended up finishing third in Group A behind even Switzerland. So
yeah,
that tells you a little bit about how competitive this tournament has been compared to years past.
Yeah, and I mean, the Swiss have really come a long way. I mean, when we looked at their roster, and I was just like, wow, there's so many NHLers. Oh, I mean, shame about Kevin Fiala getting hurt, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, but that's the NHL's biggest nightmare about this tournament is players, hurting themselves, whether out for the season or even out for a few weeks. But it's been such high tempo and competitive. I don't see how more guys are not getting hurt, especially when you're playing in some cases back-to-back games.
Right, back-to-back, and you're NHL caliber opponents, and then Canada adds Tom Wilson to the mix, which we could talk more about. I feel like we're going to do another Olympic show after all the dust is settled and all the awards are won, and we could probably kind of do a post-mortem, but so I didn't really think about talking about this today, but I guess I'll just bring it up now. You got Tom Wilson, who caused an injury and also caused a fight. So Tom Wilson doing Tom Wilson things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, you've seen the announcers talk about this, that when the competition gets to a certain degree, I mean, Italy, Switzerland, for example, there was like, by the second period, these guys were like fighting with each other. I mean, these two teams. And that was a close game because they were only up 2-0. Again, the Swiss had like 45 shots on goal. The Italian goalie was like making saves all over the place. And eventually, they give up a third goal, the game is over. If Italy had scored and made it 2-1, now we got a game again.
Right.
Now, talking about the quarterfinals, these quarterfinal matchups are all going to be super competitive. And I have to say, because Sweden did so poorly in their group, the U.S. plays Sweden. Now, that's not going to be an easy game.
No.
So I feel like the U.S., this happens at tournaments like this, where you win your group and then things don't work out. And then you're like, oh, now we have to play Sweden. Great. I mean, you have Canada, Czechia, and now Czechia is a good team, but Canada should beat them.
Canada should beat them. Yeah.
USA, Sweden. I hope the U.S. can win that game, but if I had to bet, I don't know. Then you have Slovakia, Germany. I can see Slovakia getting into the medal round, and that's a surprise, right? And then Finland, Switzerland, again, that could be that can go either way. So now you're looking at the semifinals could be very different than in years past. I want to throw kind of a grenade into all this, and as I'm watching the tournament, yes, I am that guy. I kept thinking, what if the Russians were here? What would this look like? And I
Yeah, I
think
know,
it'd be a
right?
much different tournament, I think.
Oh God, yeah, of course. I mean, I think the thing is that like it's always a mix of USA, Russia, Canada, like those three just being the top three, and they just kind of change places, and then every now and then somebody like a Sweden or Finland comes in and surprises, right? And then without Russia in the mix, it's a little more wide open. And
I don't know if teams get reseeded, but
yeah, after
okay. So
the
The US is not going to play Canada in the semifinal, but I guess
correct.
depending on how this all works out. I mean, depending on the seed, if the US wins, then who knows? I mean, hopefully they play, Switzerland or something, or
Yeah, I think it's again. I think they get reseeded by goals in the quarterfinal, or maybe it's overall. But yeah, I think what they're doing here is USA would not play Canada in the semifinal. It would the teams would then shuffle
not
order
a
again.
it's not a pure bracket, even though it may
It
appear that
looks like a bracket, but
it looks
that's
like a
yeah.
bracket, but it's not. Yeah, and so yeah, people need to be aware of that because USA Canada in the semifinal would be just unfair.
Say that again.
USA Canada in the semifinal would just be unfair. You'll be hindering the tournament. You would be knocking out one of the better teams before the gold medal game.
Well, that's what happened in
Oh
2014.
yeah,
Is that they ended up playing in like a quarterfinal or a semifinal or something like that, and
yeah.
USA ended up finishing fourth. They couldn't get even the bronze medal,
Because
and
yeah, if one of the two teams underperforms, let's say the US hadn't won their group and then just snuck in,
right,
then you end up playing Canada. This is what happened to Czechia.
right,
Czechia was supposed to like win its group, and now they're playing Canada right in the quarterfinals. Now, the other thing that really, kind of I had a thought, you have some rosters that have a mix of NHLers and some players who play domestically in Europe. Some guys have played in the NHL and then are out, they're playing in the AHL, or they're playing in their own country again. But I remember watching one game recently. It might have been Czechia Denmark, or it might have been Czechia's last game of the group stage. And they panned to a guy in the crowd who was wearing a mullet wig, which was clearly an homage to Jaromir Jagr.
right.
All I can think of was, why not call Jagr onto the team? Like, why not? Like, have him come to the Olympics. Like, it would have been so cool to see, like, because there's players who are 40 years old playing at this tournament. He wouldn't be the old, he'd be the oldest one, I guess, if he was there. But it seems so haphazard how some of these teams are put together. Like, you bring in your best players, sure, but for some countries, it's not as easy as just picking NHL players. It's not that easy because they don't have enough NHL players to fill the whole roster.
Yeah,
Right?
the Czech Republic pretty much does. And I
Yes,
mean,
no,
no disrespect to Yager, I get it. But if he was on the team, it would almost be like a token roster spot, kind of like if the US added Patrick Kane to its roster. Like he
yes,
started out playing well and then he got hurt and then he wasn't playing so well. And then it's just like, as much as they wanted to have Patrick Kane on the team, it just,
no,
you
they
got a
picked
guy gets hurt
yeah.
and then you can't bring in more guys like from overseas.
Yeah. No. They wanted to pick their best teams, and I get that the Four Nations last year was kind of almost like a dry run for teams to see who they should bring, and I get it. I mean, there were a lot of players like even Adam Fox, who was left off the roster for the U.S. because he's having a pretty lousy year with the Rangers.
Right.
They're all having a lousy year at the Rangers. And that's the kind of thing. That's the other thing about watching. That's the other thing about watching the Olympic tournament. When the U.S. is wearing the blue, it looks like the Rangers from the back, but then it's not them because they're winning all these games and scoring all these goals, and you're like, it's not the Rangers. But for a moment, it looks like the same exact jersey as the Rangers have. But no. But getting back to the overall feel of the men's tournament, it's been super exciting, and just the level, the NHL players in the league, the level of play is so much better, and obviously. But until you don't see it and experience it, and it's been a while now since we've had NHLers here. I hope that this remains a constant, because I think a couple of things. One, the tournament is way better, and number two, this is like a free commercial for the NHL, and the NHL needs all the advertising you can get organically, I feel. And and maybe the U.S. will win this first gold medal since 1980 would be pretty extraordinary, But if I had to gamble, to me, Canada looks really unbeatable.
Yeah.
I just don't know how they're a scoring machine. I mean, it's just unless the U.S. Canada meet in the gold medal game and the U.S. goalie is playing amazingly, and then a hot goalie will win you a Stanley Cup, right? So a hot goalie can win you this tournament, and that's why I think during the group stage you mentioned Swayman. I think they were testing him. They were like, okay, maybe it's open. Who's going to take the job? And it's like, you know what, Swayman, you got us through the Denmark game, but you're not going to play again, and I'm sure we'll never see him again.
I would have put Ottinger. I would have slotted him as the second string goalie on the team. I would have put him higher than Swayman. I don't think Swayman's been doing all that great this year. I don't have his stats in front of me to back that up, but I think that Ottinger's been playing a little better. So that would have been who I thought would have been the backup. Like I would have had him play that game.
And, I wasn't really sure if Canada could handle having Binnington in goal, but when you're scoring so many goals, it doesn't even matter. I mean, they're not giving up the shots. He's making the saves he needs to make.
Right.
When you're scoring 5-6 goals a game, who's going to beat you? I mean, none of these teams are going to beat Canada. No one's going to score 7 goals on Canada, right? So you have that assurance too of having the forwards and the offense, doing all the work for you. And it's just the passing. I mean, it's funny. On Friday night, I was able to I was getting pizza, right, for my family, and I went to a local pizza place, and the people that own the pizza place are Egyptian, right? And I'm pretty friendly with them, and they have cable TV in there, and they always have on like soccer or something, boxing, always something really kind of far out. Mm-hmm. And it's always like an Arabic or something. And I'm always wondering, like, what channels these people are, what satellite does this guy have that he's getting? It's not your local cable system. So I go in there on Friday, and they're showing the Canada game, and it's the TSN feed. Mm-hmm. And I ended up sitting in there for like half an hour. Like they were like making pizza. I'm like, take your time because I want to watch this. And it was actually fun to watch the TSN feed. I would pay to watch TSN over NBC if I could.
Yes.
And it was just so well done, and it was wall to wall, and they were interviewing players afterwards. I was actually watching it towards the end of the third period, and it was just the coverage was so much better. So for our Canadian listeners, they probably take that for granted, but we're stuck with NBC where we've had a couple of mishaps. I know that you put out a tweet the other day about you had while watching one of the games here.
Yeah. So what was it? I was watching the Canada-France game, and I was, and that was on the 15th. So that would have been Sunday. So it was like Sunday morning. And because I watched hockey. There were 4 games that day, and I watched the second and the fourth one. The fourth one was the US-Germany game. And then I think during the third game, I think I just did some other stuff that I had to get done. So it was like, I'll watch the Canada game, I'll watch the US game, and then I'll get things done around those games. And so first I looked at like, it wasn't on NBC. And I go, all right, it's not on NBC. Maybe it's on USA. It wasn't on USA. I go, all right, well, it'll be on Peacock because everything's on Peacock. So I go on to Peacock, and it's this British guy. Well, okay, and then I find out later on that the game was also being broadcast on, of all places, CNBC, because that's what NBC does when they have too much stuff going on. Then all of a sudden it's like they'll put a game on MSNBC, they'll put a game on CNBC, They'll put a game on USA. They'll put a game on the Food Network. They'll put a game on the Travel Channel. Like they just kind of put it wherever. Like, and I get it.
I saw a commercial during the Olympics for wrestling on Sci-Fi Channel, so they will put anything on anything they can because they have the bandwidth to do that. They own like 25 cable channels or something.
Yeah, they can do whatever they want, I guess. But so, like, I watched the first period, and it's this British guy, and all right, and it sounds like a soccer game. Because he's not really talking. He's not really doing the play-by-play. He is a little bit. He didn't have a color commentator, so he'd stop talking, and then it'd just be like crowd noise. And
it's almost like you got the international feed or something like
that's what it was. So that's what Peacock was showing. Yeah. Sometimes they were showing the international feed. Other times I'd go on Peacock, I'd watch the game, and it'd be Kenny Albert and Ed Olczyk and Brian Boucher between the benches, just how we like it, And so I'm like, this is weird, but at least he didn't refer to it as a pitch. He'd say the rink or the ice. He didn't say
Frozen.
pitch.
That's a frozen pitch. It's a frozen pitch. No.
Yeah. Would that be a fitch? Frozen pitch? But I mean, I like if I wasn't really listening, I'm thinking like this is like soccer. Like it just sounds like soccer. But then even soccer has a color commentator. So I was just like, I'm like just thinking, how does this like if I watch a soccer game, I want the British guys who know all the things about soccer, who are going to tell me all the stuff, even if they don't over explain it to me, because they're going to assume I'm a fan and they're not going to dumb it down for me. That's fine. You know what I mean? But like, there is no shortage of hockey commentators, especially during this, this 2 weeks, right? You got the guys from TNT working for NBC, right? Or USA or whatever for NBC. So, I mean, I just thought that was weird.
Well, I will say in 2019, I was in France and I was there for the Women's World Cup and I was covering that. But it was in June. And so I wanted to watch the Stanley Cup finals between the Blues and the Bruins. And I remember staying up at 2 a.m. and fishing around and finding it. It was in French. And I watched it without really understanding what was happening. And I always wondered, was that like a feed in France or was that like the French Canadian feed? I had no idea. I couldn't tell.
Mm-hmm.
And because you can often tell when French Canadians are speaking as opposed to people in France. And so, yeah, when you're kind of in a corner, you'll watch. If I was in Europe and I had to watch hockey, I would watch it in whatever language they were doing it in, even if it was English, because British, because you're kind of stuck. But when you're at home, you have options.
Yeah.
I just think Peacock has got so much stuff. I mean, I've literally watched, I think it's a channel on Peacock where there's like 4 screens up at the same time. And I'm like, okay, I'll watch some of this, but if one of them is a hockey game, I can't do that. I have to watch the hockey game because I can't literally watch hockey in one corner, then curling in the other. I mean, curling is on all the time. If you like curling or just curious about curling, it's on all the time. And it's pretty fun to watch, but it's, that's like week 1 of the Olympics. Then once the hockey gets into full swing, I'm watching 4 hockey games a day. We should point out that the gold medal game for the men is on Sunday.
Yes.
So I have memories of 2010 USA Canada. I hope the US can go because it would be really tragic if they lose to Sweden, because in the sense that you end up playing a pretty good team too early because they underachieved in the preliminary stage, But I will say, just to put a final point on the US, I do think the US is playing very well. And I do think I mentioned the U.S. as like a more blue collar team. What I mean by that is that I think that they're, yes, they're individual stars and they play in the NHL, but it doesn't seem like the flashy names of the Canadian team. It's not
right.
like every player is like a star. I mean, they're a star in their own team. Like Jack Hughes has been getting a lot of attention, I feel, but Jack Hughes isn't a household name.
Right.
Connor David and Sidney Crosby are. So, Brock Nelson is not a household name unless, or Matt Boldy or whatever, unless you're in Minnesota or something. So I do think some of these, there's a bit of a disparity there, and we remember the 4 nations last year, and that was pretty exciting, USA, Canada. I mean, I will mention geopolitics plays a big part of this. I mean, when US played Denmark, there were people there were like banners. The Danish had banners, like Greenland banners.
Yes, I saw that. Somebody held up a Greenland flag.
And I did see video of like American fans chanting, "We want Greenland, we want Greenland." Of course, they just did that just to get under the Danish skin.
Right.
So I can see USA, Canada. Last year, we remember the tariffs. That game, I mean, there were like 3 fights in the first 10 seconds. I mean, clearly that. Now Olympic hockey is a little different. I mean, there's been a little bit of fighting, which surprised me. Olympic hockey is not known to endorse fighting. I'd be curious to see if a USA Canada gold medal game materializes, what will happen there. I don't know that you'll have, lots of fights because, I mean, referees
nobody wants to hurt their team. And
nobody wants, yeah, exactly. In this case,
is where you swallow your pride and you suck it up and you take your lumps because you don't want to be the guy that gives up a power play.
Yeah, yeah, and also, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one thing to do it clearly. Those first 9 seconds of the Four Nations was pre-planned or whatever. Those
Well, that
guys,
was NHL rules.
and that was NHL. It was like, okay,
So,
guys, do
you're
whatever
going to
you
get
want.
5. You're not going to get kicked out of the game.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's a little different here, and so I expect these guys to be a little more professional if that were to happen. Now, I'm talking about it like as if it's going to happen. There's still a lot of hockey to happen between now and Sunday. So
Oh,
fingers crossed the USA gets the gold medal game and maybe even wins it. It would be pretty big deal for the US to win the gold medal, I'd say.
now obviously this you might be listening to this after the quarterfinals happen or as the quarterfinals are happening or maybe they've already wrapped up. But I mean, just looking at these matchups, I mean, I feel like Finland will beat Switzerland. I feel like Canada definitely will beat Czechia. US and Sweden, I feel like US would win, although Sweden could upset. Slovakia and Germany is interesting because I feel that like Slovakia is the favorite and they scored more goals.
Yeah, but they got
Um,
Draisaitl, who's been on fire.
but they got Draisaitl.
Yeah.
So I feel like if there's I feel like the most likely to upset would be Germany over Slovakia. And then maybe the next likely to upset would be Sweden over the US. But then you never know. You never know. I mean, I think so. That's my, that's just my, we'll see how well this ages in a day and a half.
Yeah. I guess the one big question I want to throw out there that we're not
Yeah.
going to answer here. We're going to answer that, I think, with the wrap-up show after the Olympics are over.
Yeah.
Which is Team X wins the gold medal. And does it have an asterisk because the Russians are not here?
No.
And,
No.
okay. But there was boycotts in the past. We know that. There were boycotts in the past where the Russians weren't there. It mattered. When the US wasn't there, it mattered. So I know it's tough,
Russia boycotted the 84
Summer
Olympics.
Olympics. Because we boycotted 1980 in Moscow.
Right. So I mean, it happens. It's just based on who's there at the time. So if somebody wins the gold, it's just based on who's there at the time. You know what I mean? If a team doesn't win the gold medal one year, it's just, is there an asterisk in 1980 when the US won? No, I guess because the Soviet Union was there. But
yeah, no, I guess because it's interesting. In soccer, you have the World Cup, and that's like the preeminent tournament for that sport.
Yep.
We have world championships every year. Those for juniors mostly. I mean, I consider the gold medal at the Olympics to crown the best hockey team in the world. I think that this tournament does that, especially when you have NHL players in it. So,
right.
So I do think whoever wins the gold medal here is the best hockey team in the world, and period.
Yeah.
So I agree with that, and I think this is the preeminent tournament for that. I mean, could there be a World Cup of the World Baseball Classic is going to start up again in March. I think they had that every 3 years. It's a fun tournament, and I'd love to see the World Cup of Hockey come back. I know that there's talk of that was a brief thing in the 90s. I know there's talk of that because of the Four Nations, and it'd be curious to see what happens. Not to get too far afield, but the NBA All-Star Game was this past weekend. What did they do? They did like 2 U.S. teams in World. They did USA Stars, USA Stripes, and then the World team, because I think they realized the international component is a lot more exciting and more fun than East-West or pick a team or whatever they're doing, right? And so I do see that the NBA wants to be more global, the NFL wants to be more global, and hockey is already a global sport because you have all these players in Europe already. It'd be nice to have a World Cup of hockey, maybe played in every 3 years or something. It'd be fun if that were to happen, because I would totally be into that.
Yeah, I agree. That would be fun. So yeah, so the bronze medal game is February 21st. The gold medal game is February 22nd. As far as final thoughts, the only thing I'll say is this. If we do get that matchup that we're hoping for, that USA versus Canada in the gold medal game, and USA is going to win, I feel like it's going to have to be that kind of 2-1 kind of win. I feel like if you try to beat Canada 8-7, you're going to lose 8-4. But if you grind them down and win, they say defense wins championships, and you look at the defense on the U.S. roster, it's arguably better than the defense and goaltending on the U.S. roster, arguably better Tim thinks it was way better, or I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but Tim thinks that the U.S. defense better than the Canadian defense, but of course the Canadian forwards better than the U.S. forwards. But, you only need one goal to win.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to recap it. If we're looking at USA Canada, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves because it could be
we're being hopeful.
Sweden versus Slovakia, and then we're like, oh, okay.
Now, so what do you have to say about that? So then what's your thoughts on that? Yeah, exactly.
No, I will say if we don't get USA Canada, but if Slovakia were to win the whole thing, that'd be kind of fun too, because it would be something nobody predicted, and that could be what happens here, and that would be a big surprise. And we're seeing that across the Olympics and other sports where teams are winning gold medals. Like a Brazilian won the downhill in skiing. Brazil never won a gold medal. Actually, South America never won a medal of any sort at the Winter Olympics. Or you had the Japanese couple winning the pairs in figure skating. That's never happened.
Right.
So the world's getting much smaller. The internet has made everything, everyone knows what everyone else is doing. There's nothing, that's hidden anymore. There's no secrets. Everyone's watched everyone play a million times. And so anything can happen. And so, but it's been a great tournament. It's been fun. And it's given us something to do, in the middle of the day, let's say on a Wednesday or even on the weekend when it's been so cold out for most of the country. It's fun to watch the Olympics and pass the time.
Yeah, I agree. I've enjoyed this so far. So I think that's all I got to say. You?
It's good. I mean, yeah. I have to leave now. I got to watch more hockey.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's a wrap then. So thank you for listening to the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. As always, if you've enjoyed the show, please be sure to like and subscribe. Please check out the newsletter at puckjunk.com/newsletter. And if you'd like to support this podcast, you could do so by purchasing a t-shirt at shop.puckjunk.com. And until next time, collect what you like and go USA!